Chuck Blair here. Great to have you joining me this morning. It's raining out here in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and wherever you're joining us from, it's wonderful to have you as part of our morning gathering. And today, what we're looking at is the idea. I mean, if I was use big fancy language, I would use the efficacy of failure. In other words, why failure can be so significant. And it gets back to this line that we've been looking at. Again, so we're going into the story of Noah and the ark, and the idea where God says, look, I'm going to obliterate the human whom I created from the face of the earth, from human to beast to creeping animal to the birds in the heavens, because I regret I made these things. Now, it's easy to look at that as so dire, but the reality of it is, from a Christian New Church perspective, we read just a little bit under the level there of the actual language. And the one way to hold that is that God's looking at this part, and He's looking at parts of our lives, a Noah part that is beautiful and wonderful and at peace, and that is to grow to all eternity. Then this other part of our lives that's just a little crazy, and that the reality is we're better off without. And I think we all know that part, right? We all have that part that's just like, oh my goodness. And it's important to know that this really good part and this really challenging part, that the challenging part is, in God's economy, is used to invite us into that better part, into the better angels of our nature. And this part over here that is not so great will fail a great deal. And that idea that there's an inevitable failure, and it gets ties into the idea that evil has within it its own punishment. And those parts of us that are totally dysfunctional, they sort of have their own, I don't know if you'd call it self-leveling, but they have their own thing that it just creates its own misery. It creates its own misery, creates its own anxiety, creates its own this, that, and the other thing. And eventually it gets us out of it, simply because it's such an such an awful place to be, which I think probably a lot of you can resonate with. So the idea of, should we let our kids fail or should we let ourselves fail? Well, the simple answer is yes. That we should, and that just takes a lot of work. It's really hard to allow those we love to fail. Extremely hard to allow those we love to fail. I can remember, I've been thinking a lot about this over the past, past month or two, watching our adult children go through all their challenges in life. And it brings back to my mind when we were first married, and it's a story I tell a lot, but it's important. It was an important moment for me and for my wife. Is I actually got to a point where I went down to a place went down to a credit union to borrow money to pay off borrowed money. And I was like 27, 28 years old, and that's where I realized, like, this is just not sustainable. We had essentially financially failed at that point in time. Anytime you're borrowing money to pay off borrowed money, not even to get a lower rate, it was just, we didn't have the money to pay off borrowed money, but I knew if I borrowed more money, I'd have money to be able to pay borrowed more money. A loan to pay off a loan, not a great idea. And that was really painful. And within a number of years, we made another really painful financial mistake. But I look back at those times, and those were critical failures. I mean, critical in a certain way, because it certainly felt life threatening at the time. And I look at life and I think, oh my goodness, if I hadn't learned that lesson then, I'd be in really big trouble now. And it was an expensive lesson. I was sharing with someone a great quote. I think it was someone who worked for IBM who made a $20,000 mistake, and their boss calls them in for an evaluation, and this person's sure they're going to get fired because they made a $20,000 mistake. And what their boss said with a smile, "I'm not going to fire you. I just spent $20,000 on your education. Why would I fire you?" Good point. Well taken. And that's the challenge, right? Is when we look at our kids, whether they're little or teenagers or adult, it's hard to accept that we have to let them fail. I love the way Reverend Eric Carswell put it about letting kids fail. What he said, him and his wife Donna did, is he said, to teach them to do the stairs, they'd have a stair, and then they'd put the baby gate. So the idea was that the infant could crawl up one step, but they weren't going to go high enough to be able to tumble the whole way down the stairs in failure. That's not it. It was allowing them enough freedom that they could start to learn that way. That's how human beings learn. I don't know why it is that we learn so much more from failure than we do from success, but we do. It just seems to be the way it goes. And what we can get to, folks, so we really learn to get a healthier perspective around failure, which I need to say is probably one of the areas where I really struggle having a healthy perspective around failure. But what I imagine it can give you is this, and this is courtesy of Ann Voskamp. Was reading some of her this morning, getting ready for today. She said, "What we start to develop is faith in the middle." I really liked that phrase, faith in the middle. So it's not talking about like the middle of our body; it's talking about in the middle of the journey, right? It's learning to have faith in that failure. Like there's that time that's just the inevitable failure where we just it just doesn't work, and we have to learn to have faith there, and the faith is a faith that holds the whole picture. It's a faith that really trusts that there is a bigger picture. Yeah, I'm in the middle. Yes, I'm failing. Yes, I just failed. Yes, I lost blah 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 amount of dollars, or that relationship just completely turns out that there's that failure, but it always bumps out to that, and there's a bigger picture. Not but, using the word very deliberately there, the word and there's always this bigger picture. So that's what we want to do, is we want to be able to approach failure in such a way that we can have faith in the middle of the journey. And those are the people I think who can really change things. And you know who they are. I think about I definitely have people in my life who when I feel overwhelmed and like how are we gonna make this work, and how is this gonna work, and how's that gonna work? People who just that somehow they've managed to have such deep faith that they have faith the whole way through the journey, beginning, middle, and end. And I think we need people like that in our lives. I think we need a lot of them, actually in our lives, and they make an immense difference. So friends, that's the thought for today is, should we let our kids fail? Yes. And create a context for that failure where it's not catastrophic, and just know that that's part of the journey. And I just want to honor too, it's painful to watch, because when you get older, you do know stuff. And yeah, of course, there's wisdom in youth who don't know anything and are willing to try anything. Yeah, that's true. And there's also this other part that when you get older, you know stuff, and you know that certain choices will lead to painful consequences. And that's part of life. That's how God seems to allow us to grow in this spirit of freedom. And it certainly seems to be one of the best teaching tools we have out there. So that's my thought for today. And may you as well, if you're in the middle, may you learn to have a little faith in the middle today also. So with that, friends, what we're going to do is we're going to do a little meditation, followed by a little prayer, followed by a little blessing, and we'll say hi to folks on social media. So with that, friends, let's get a little breath. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends. What I wanted to do is say hi to folks here today, and again, I'm hoping everybody had a wonderful weekend. We certainly did. All right. Oops. Sorry. Looking at the looking at the wrong thing. I'm a little uh, yeah, I'm a little rusty today. All right. And just a reminder too, folks, that we do have you have the ability to sign up for the new small group, which is coming starting in a couple of weeks, starting in 2 weeks. And you can do that off of our homepage. Again, it's literally called new. So it's our new small group and it's our new small group. So if that interests you, it's a 3-week small group. More than welcome to join us. All right. Sue writes, we had it yesterday. I saw the pictures of I-76 at Gulf Mills on the weather. Yikes, keeping you all in our prayers. Yeah, it was pretty incredible yesterday, the amount of rain of biblical proportions as we were getting ready for Noah. It was kind of funny with that. Kim, good morning to you, and I hope you're doing well, my friend. Martha, good morning, and I hope you're doing well. Tuning in out there from Michigan. Marcus writes, an amateur tries to win, a champion tries to find the place where they break and fix it. Yeah, it's so interesting that way, Marcus, right? And it's really learning to embrace failure and that idea of grit and resilience. Yesterday I read a silly little thing. What's the best way to move through the challenges in life? And somebody's answer was simply take them on. And I think it's just a lot of wisdom to that. And it's actually a little bit counterintuitive in the day and age in which we live. Patricia, great to see you joining us here this morning as well. Paige writes, failure is really hard for sure. Absolutely true. Pretty much everything I've learned, I did it wrong first. There is a humble surrender in that, which opens us to the willingness and then opens the door to that aha. So that's how it's done. Yes, painful watching your children in this process. Sometimes the failure is fatal. That's really good to say, Mary. And sometimes it is really hard, and sometimes that failure sometimes the failure has dire consequences, and it's important to acknowledge too, because some of you have definitely lived that. Jean writes, good morning on this rainy Monday. Good morning to you, Jean. Tina, you are welcome and great to have you joining us. Linda writes, it's so hard to let them fail. I wasn't good at that. I wish I was. Yeah, I'm no good at that either, and it is just really hard. And just watching, watching your kids have dreams and you just know that there's steps they're going to need to take and there's failures they're going to need to go through to move through it, is very, very true. So friends, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And we certainly wish you all the very best today. And we look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.